What if I told you most shooters are training the wrong skills? Not because they're lazy, not because they lack talent, but because nobody ever taught them how elite shooters actually think. And that's exactly what makes George Digweed different. He doesn't coach shooting like most instructors. He doesn't stand behind students saying, "More lead, swing faster, you missed in front." No, George Digweed teaches something far deeper: vision, balance, feel, timing, mental control. That's why his students improve fast, because he isn't teaching tricks. He's rebuilding the shooter from the ground up. And when you study George Digweed deeply, you realize something shocking. The greatest clay shooter in history built his entire system around simplicity. Not complicated theory, not mathematical lead charts, just pure target understanding. Today, we're breaking down the real coaching skills George Digweed teaches his students. The same concepts that helped him dominate world shooting for decades. And trust me, some of these lessons completely destroy traditional shooting advice. So stay focused, because this isn't just a shooting lesson. This is elite shooting psychology. Skill number 1, vision creates accurate shots. This is the foundation of his entire coaching system. George believes great shooting starts with great seeing. Most shooters think they miss because of bad lead. George disagrees completely. He teaches that the real problem is usually visual failure, because the second your eyes disconnect from the target, everything collapses. Timing, movement, confidence, control. That's why George constantly teaches students: focus on the target, not the gun. In fact, he strongly believes both eyes should stay open whenever possible because depth perception matters massively in clay shooting. Most beginners panic and start checking the barrel. Huge mistake. George wants shooters locked onto a specific point of the clay. Not the whole target, not the background, a precise visual point. Because the brain calculates movement naturally when vision stays clean. This is why George almost never teaches measured lead. He teaches visual instinct: feel the line, see the target, trust the eyes. That's real championship shooting. And here's the powerful part. George believes your subconscious can calculate faster than conscious thinking. That's why overthinking destroys shooters. The more you try to aim, the worse you become. Elite shooters don't force shots. They visually connect to targets. That's why George's shooting looks calm even under insane pressure, because his eyes stay disciplined while others mentally panic. Skill number 2, swing through naturally. This may be his most famous coaching principle. George Digweed is known for using the swing-through method on almost everything, and his reason is simple. Swing through teaches natural timing. Most instructors teach shooters to hold lead. George thinks that creates hesitation. Instead, he teaches students to start behind the target, move through the line, then fire naturally as the barrel passes the front edge. Why? Because this creates connection. George believes swing through helps shooters understand the target's line better and reduces vertical errors. This is why his students stop chasing exact inches of lead. Because George hates robotic shooting. He says shooting should feel natural, like throwing a ball, like catching something, not like solving a math equation. And here's where his coaching becomes dangerous. Most shooters obsess over lead distance. George obsesses over gun speed, timing, line, smoothness. That changes everything, because once students stop trying to measure the shot, their movement becomes free, natural, fluid, and suddenly, difficult targets start breaking consistently. This is why George often says, lead becomes irrelevant when hand-eye coordination is correct. That statement alone destroys traditional coaching methods. But his results speak for themselves. World titles, decades of dominance, Legendary consistency. That doesn't happen accidentally. Skill number 3, balance controls movement. Most shooters ignore footwork completely. George Digweed thinks that's a disaster because according to his coaching philosophy, balance controls everything. This is one of the biggest differences between George's method and traditional shooting systems. Many old-school methods teach shooters to lean heavily onto the front foot. George completely challenges this. Instead, he teaches balanced movement, weight distributed correctly, feet aligned with the target line, shoulders staying square throughout the swing. Why? Because unstable movement destroys consistency. George realized something most shooters never notice. The body must work with the movement, not against it. That's why his students learn how to rotate naturally without losing balance. And this is critical on difficult crossing targets. Most shooters lock up physically. George stays fluid. Balanced shooters move smoother. Smoother movement creates cleaner visual connection. Cleaner visual connection creates better timing. Everything connects together. And here's the crazy part. George built this method mostly through observation and self-learning. He studied great shooters carefully, watched how they moved, watched how balance affected timing, then refined the system himself over decades. That's why his coaching feels different. It wasn't copied from textbooks. It was built through world-class experience. And that experience created one of the most effective shooting systems ever seen. Skill number 4, feel beats force. This is where average shooters completely fail. They try to overpower targets. George teaches the opposite. Feel the shot. Most shooters become aggressive under pressure. Their movement becomes violent, fast, jerky, desperate. George hates this because tension destroys timing. Instead, he teaches smooth movement, smooth mount, smooth transition, smooth acceleration. Why? Because rhythm matters in shotgun shooting. Elite shooters move with flow, not panic. This is why George rarely talks about trying harder. He focuses on becoming more connected, more relaxed, more natural. And here's something fascinating. George often doesn't even tell students exactly where they missed. Why? Because he wants shooters developing self-awareness. He wants them feeling the mistake. That's high-level coaching, because true mastery happens when the shooter understands their own movement instinctively, not when they depend on constant external correction. This is also why George's coaching creates long-term improvement. He trains independent shooters, not robotic students. And that mindset creates confidence under pressure, because confidence doesn't come from memorizing information. It comes from understanding your own movement deeply. Skill number 5, calm controls pressure. This may be the most powerful skill of all, because pressure destroys talented shooters every single day. But George Digweed built a system designed for consistency under stress. That's why his mentality became legendary. He teaches students, never become emotional after a miss, because emotional shooting destroys focus instantly. The moment frustration enters your brain, vision weakens, movement speeds up, timing collapses. George stays calm, always. That's why his shooting looks so controlled, even in massive competitions, even under world championship pressure. And this mentality spreads into his coaching. He teaches process over emotion, focus over panic, structure over chaos. This is why George's students improve mentally as well as technically, because he teaches shooters how to think correctly. And that's the real secret behind elite performance. Not motivation, not aggression, calm execution. George Digweed understands something very few athletes ever master. Pressure only destroys people who fight it emotionally. Champions stay neutral, focused, disciplined, controlled. That's why George Digweed became more than just a champion shooter. He became a symbol of consistency itself. Final thoughts: mastery through simplicity. Most instructors teach mechanics. George Digweed teaches understanding. That's the difference. And most importantly, trust. Trust in your eyes. Trust in your movement. Trust in your timing. Because elite shooting is not about forcing results. It's about creating repeatable control. That's why George Digweed remained dominant for decades while other shooters came and went. His system wasn't based on temporary confidence. It was built on fundamentals that survive pressure. And once shooters truly understand those fundamentals, everything changes. Targets slow down. Movement becomes smoother. Confidence becomes real. And clay shooting stops feeling random. That's the power of the George Digweed method. Not flashy shooting, not complicated theory. Pure mastery through simplicity. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider supporting the channel. Subscribe to No Recoil Shotgun and like this video. Most people watch, but don't subscribe. And honestly, that makes it harder to keep improving these videos for you. If something here helps you, even a little, that support really matters. And if you feel anything can be better, just leave a comment. I read every one, and I use your feedback to make each video better for you.